Now, let's talk about this because a bunch of guys, this is this time of the year where guys are releasing their top threes, their top fives, their top tens. Now, if you're releasing any more in the top 10, I think it's a waste of time. That's my opinion on that. When I see guys, I saw a top like 15. I'm like, okay, you didn't really narrow anything down here. You kind of just took your best offers and threw them in
Yeah.
there. So we got to
But
stick to top tens at most.
before they put a clamp on, or before they took the clamps off of how many visits that you could take, I really only paid attention to like top threes or top fours, because like you're not going to visit all the schools in your top 10, right? So like, who cares? But yes, we're excited for these kids.
Yeah, so we'll go down this list. Zayden Krempin listed Texas in, I believe, his top 7. Valdon Stone, this is a guy that I was really high on because of where he's from Virginia. We talked about that. We're expanding the recruiting map. We haven't landed a Virginia kid in a while. The DMV area, I think, is really hot, and this is a guy that's really, really raw. We'll talk about him. Mark Bowman, the 5-star tight end from California, also released, I believe, a top 7. And then Samuel Rosenborough, there's whispers around that he could kind of be silently committed already to Texas from Florida. And then I'll throw this guy in here. He actually just talked about it today, where he's going to visit Texas. He canceled his Florida State visit. He's listed as an athlete, but he wants to play defensive line, but he plays offensive line in high school, Lamar Brown. So we'll see what happens there. But let's jump into this, and we'll just go one by one. Zayden Krempin, offensive tackle from Texas, 4-star, 60 or 267 nationally, 6'4", 270 pounds. What do you like about him, Gerald?
Yeah, I looked at his measurables and I watched his tape, and I wonder if Texas honestly sees him on the inside, right? He's listed as a tackle on most services, but he looks like a guard to me, and I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that as a compliment, right? I think he's got a lot of the skill sets that you need to be a successful guard in college. He's a big kid, still 6'4", 270, but when you look at the profiles that Texas is recruiting at tackle, that weight is usually somewhere in the range of like 300, right? So I wonder if he's a guard for Texas. And again, Texas is looking to have a pretty deep and a pretty well-rounded offensive line class. So I imagine you're going to have multiple interior linemen in here, and I think he's probably one of them. I really like his skill set. I also love getting a kid out of Prosper. I feel like Prosper has not been super friendly to Texas in recent memory. Maybe I'm just an old head, right? But getting a guy from the DFW area, keeping those hooks in the DFW. And again, if you look at the offer sheet, right? Michigan wants him. Michigan knows what they're doing at offensive line, right? A&M, I hate to say it, they know what they're doing in the trenches, right? LSU knows what they're doing in the trenches. SMU is probably throwing a bag at him, right? He's a local kid, wanting to get him on campus and on the up and up. So again, I think he's a highly coveted kid. He's got measurables that make me think he probably slides inside when he gets to Austin. And that's a good thing, because I really think he's got a skill set that can advance pretty quickly.
No, I don't disagree with that. And I agree. Like, that's the first thing I noticed too. I think he's inside guy. I don't think he's an outside guy, but I will say this. Again, versatility. I think they want 1 or 2 guys that can kind of be tweeners. And that's someone that can, if injury happens, you want to keep your 5 best on the field, you slide that guy to the outside. I could see that with this guy. Wouldn't shock me at all if he's the 1 or 2 of those guys on the board of, hey, this guy can play inside and outside. They, like I said, positional versatility. And we've seen Kyle Flood talk about this. He said, I want my 5 best on the field. I don't really care about the positions. So if you can get a guy like this in your room and mold him to play inside and outside, that's a big deal.
Yeah, and again, positional versatility, a guy who can, like you said, when you want to have your best 5 guys on the field, it doesn't really matter what I say. Doesn't really matter. Probably center is the one that I have specific questions about, right? You probably don't want to just slot anybody in there. But again, I think Kyle Flood knows what he's doing. He's forgotten more about recruiting offensive line than I'll ever know. But again, I really do wonder. Listed as a tackle, I really think he slides inside for Texas predominantly. But again, a guy who can kick out and play that offensive tackle position if you need him, nothing to sneeze at.
No, not at all. Next up, this is my guy. I've stamped it. I want him. I've wanted him for like a month and a half now. Valdon Stone from Virginia, 4-star. He's 174 in the nation. If you go to 247, though, I think he's in the top 50. And I like 247. I think 247 is the best recruiting service. So if you guys just want to go based off that, that's fine. But I try to be fair and do composite. This guy, I want him for this reason mainly. Has only played football a couple of years. He's from Germany, came over. I love guys like this. That's why I'm a big fan of Smith the Robo. When you see them on the field and they're already like, they're basically, they don't know what they're doing. They're kind of running around with their chicken with their head cut off, but they're able to make plays. And he's a big guy as well. So this is someone that I think if we coach him up right, he would be a 5-star guy. Like, we could take him up a star just by coaching because he's already got the frame. That's why he's ranked so high. So I would love to get this guy for that reason, number one. Number two, I want this guy to, again, to expand that map, to make this for Texas be able to go from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast. East Coast is starting to come along. There's another guy in here that we'll talk about from New Jersey. So I think this would be a really, really good get for Texas if they can get him. And the reason I have him in offensive, there's talk, and I think he did play offensive line a little bit, but he's seen as a defensive lineman in this class.
Yeah, I think he probably fits more of the bill of what Texas is recruiting at that defensive line position, like 6'3", 315, 320. I shouldn't remember off the top of my head, but right. It's like he fits that bill of what Texas likes at that interior guy. Very athletic, quick on his feet. I think he ran like a 4.5 or 4.6 shuttle at a combine, so like quicker than he probably should be, and really what you like to see from your defensive lineman, your interior guys. I don't think he has a Texas visit scheduled yet, but getting in that top group even is big for them. And like you said, expanding that recruiting footprint. Texas is a national recruiting brand at this point. Like they've always been, but I think they're really trying to flex that muscle a bit. So getting into the DMV makes a lot of really good defenders. Like, there's no two ways around it. Like, especially linebackers, the state of Texas doesn't produce a ton of elite linebackers. We don't see them. They're few and far between. That's why a guy like Anthony Hill was a big win for Texas. So having the opportunity to say, when they come in state, we're going to grab them, but we also have a pipeline to the places that make them, Virginia, Georgia is another one. We'll talk about a Georgia recruit here in just a couple minutes. I think Valdon Stone ends up on the defensive side of the ball. I think it's probably where his biggest upside is. He just fits that mold of, like, you put him in the middle of the defense, he eats up two gaps, and the linebackers have a field day. And I really love that about his game.
I completely agree. Let's talk about this guy because I think there's an argument to be made that this is the best player Texas could land in the class, and that is Mark Bowman. This is a guy that reclassified, and he's already, like I said, he was a 4-star when we talked about him last time. He's already a 5-star. He's probably going to end up being a top 10 player in this class after reclassifying, which is insane. And if you go watch the tape, you will see why. This guy is an athletic freak, guys, an athletic freak, 6'4.5", 225 pounds. And he is someone that will step on campus and he will play snaps right away. Do I know if he'll start? I can't answer that question because we do have a lot of talent in that room coming up, but he will play. That's how good he is. And to say that for a guy that's probably only going to turn 18 years old in his first college football game, that is crazy. What Sark can do with this guy, I mean, he could be 1,000-yard receiver at Texas. That's how good he could be. He's that good.
Yeah, he's kind of like a Brock Bowers clone. When you look at his tape, when you watch what he does and how he's built, kind of his game, very much a Brock Bowers clone, or the kid from, I can't remember, the guy from Penn State this past year that
Tyler
played
Warren.
like Tyler Warren played like 15 different positions. I think he even was filling up the water jugs when he was off. Like, dude was just doing everything. And that's the kind of talent that Mark Bowman is. He's a guy who can come in and do whatever he wants. He's a wide receiver in a tight end's body in a lot of ways, but also he can also block. He can block and be an inline guy because of his size and his hands and his skill set. There's not much I could say about Bowman that hasn't already been said by people who are way smarter than me, but like, this would be a game changer for Texas. And Texas is already recruiting at a really elite level. And this would just be one of those continued validations that Texas is back and where they should be.
Well, and if you look at the cycle, I think it's funny. You get Jatavian Sanders. He has a really good year, and we're like, man, can we get better? Gunnar Helm has a better year. I think Jack Entries is going to come in here and have a better year than Gunnar Helm. And then if this guy comes on campus, we're talking about a cycle where it just continues to get better, where you go from like 4th round to 3rd round, I believe Gunnar Helm was. Then you could probably get a 2nd or 1st round pick. And then Mark Bowman, if you just keep him honestly the same and really don't do much with him, he's probably going to be a 1st round pick just based off measurables. So that'd be crazy. I do think it's going to come down to, like you said, Brock Bowers. I think Georgia's going to pitch the hell out of that. I think they're going to throw on the tape and say, that's you, come here. So I think you're going to have to worry about them. I also think you're going to have to worry about USC in this recruitment because of the home factor. And then I think Texas. I think those are going to end up being his final 3, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't love that Oregon, USC, and Georgia all get visits after Texas, right? I think he's visiting Texas the first week of June, and those other 3 get cracks at him after. Oregon's going to throw a bag because that's what Oregon's doing, and no shade at them, right? USC, hometown favorite. Again, they're going to be able to recruit really well. If you want guys like Bowman to end up at Texas, and we'll talk about this a little bit more with a guy on the defensive side, you want USC to have a really bad year. You want him to want to get away from home a bit. But yeah, Georgia is the one that, they had Brock Bowers, right? You put that teach tape on, and that's how it goes. I really do think probably Georgia and Oregon's always a threat because Phil Knight wants a championship before he dies. So like they're going to pony up what they need. And again, that's not a shot. That's just how life works. But Bowman's going to get paid wherever he goes. I said it before and I'll say it again. So like if Texas really wants him and it's a money situation, I don't imagine that they lose in that debate. So I think it's going to be all the other things that come into play.
Yeah, and I know they're from Texas originally, and his dad has been saying like to him, go to Texas, go to Texas. He's been saying to guys on Texas football and stuff like that, hey, we want him to go to Texas. But I mean, they're going to let him make his decision as they should. So the parents want him there. So that does help a little bit. Next up, we'll talk about Samuel Rosenborough, 134th nationally, offensive lineman, interior offensive lineman, 7 in the country, 6'5", 285 pounds from Florida. But I believe his mom relocated to Texas, so that does help Texas in the recruiting here. What do you see from him?
Yeah, so this profile, right? We talked about it with Krempin, like typical interior offensive line, 6'5", just a shade under a couple, picnic basket under 300 pounds, really long arms, really good feet, really versatile. Unlike Mark Bowman, Texas gets the last visit for this kid, which I really, really like. And again, this is one where Texas can go into Florida, into deep SEC country and grab one of the most coveted guys, right? Because he's got A&M, Ohio State, Florida State are all have visits scheduled, but Texas gets that one on the 20th, that last pivotal one in that visit window. And so Texas being able to get that last word in makes me feel really good about it. Again, I think this is going to be a 4 or 5 offensive lineman class. And I think Rosenborough is when Texas wants to be in that number. He's a guy who I think could come in and play early if he needs to. He probably won't have to based upon how Texas has recruited. But I think if they're pressed into service early, he's one that I think has a really natural skill set and fit that he could jump in and play some snaps at guard if his number gets called.
No, I agree. And I see him again, like you just said, Zayden Krempin. I think they're kind of similar. And I think he could probably be a little bit of a tweener as well. And I think he's going to go to Texas. I really do. I think all signs to me have been pointing to that. I could be wrong, but everything that I'm hearing, there's a silent commit, and it's someone from Florida, and I think it's him because he's been somewhat high on Texas since the beginning, since we started talking about him like 3 or 4 months ago. So I think he does end up at Texas, and I think what you said too, we get the last visit. We usually nail the last visit. Like Steve Sarkisian has done a tremendous job. Those guys usually commit right after they visit if it's the last visit. So I do think he ends up at Texas, and it's a really big get because I agree. I think the offensive line and the linebacker class have to be big this year because of the guys leaving the program. Like, again, this is the last big year for Texas on the offensive line. All these guys will basically be gone after this year. So I think it's really big to get someone like Samuel Rosenborough, also like a John Turntine, Felix Ojo. We've talked about those guys as well. So I would love to add him to the class.
Yeah, I saw him. I watched his tape. I saw what he's about. Get him. Do whatever you need to.